Hello and welcome to Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which features interviews and discussions on all issues relating to high quality in the early years and school-age care sector. In our episodes, we have a range of speakers who are leaders in the areas that matter to Early Childhood Ireland members. This podcast series is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance, which offers a comprehensive range of cover at discounted premiums for both business and personal insurance products. So visit www.aricus.ie for more information. So in this series of the podcast, we're exploring our member resources called Eco Emotions. And in this episode, we're going to take a deep dive and examine eco emotions in action, so to speak. So to do that, I'm delighted to be joined by Early Childhood Ireland members Johanna Davis and Mary Ellen O'Sullivan from Seedling Nature School in Limerick. Johanna has been active in the field of early childhood education since 2004. She was involved in the training of early years educators in Mary Immaculate College and in other institutions for over 15 years. And in 2017, she took the step of setting up Seedling Nature Schools, her own outdoor preschool and after school. She's passionate about nature education, creativity, and music in early childhood. Seedling Nature Schools is operating in a primary school grounds in Limerick using a yurt and a wagon as the only structures to protect against the weather. Children spend most of their time outside, and Johanna feels really privileged to put her life's work in the service of children and is very grateful for the team of educators who have come to join her on the project and enable her vision to become a reality. Mary Ellen is an enthusiastic educator with a passion for outdoors, physical activity and inclusive practice. She's manager at Seedling Nature Schools. She has a BA in Early Childhood Studies and Practice from NUI Galway, postgrad in Autism Studies from Mary Immaculate College and the Middletown Centre of Autism, and she's just completed Link with Mary Immaculate. She, in addition to all that, she's just started her MA in Early Intervention and Inclusive Practice with the TUS University in Limerick. She's worked in the early years sector for 9 years in various settings and has been at Seedling since 2018, so almost since the beginning. And she's been manager there for just over a year. And she loves working at Seedlings because they're passionate about educating children outdoors and what it brings to their learning and development. So it sounds a lovely setting, and I'm really looking forward to hear how the outdoor approach in Seedlings supports sustainability and self-regulation and so on. So Johanna, can you start by telling us a bit about your setting, why you decided to set it up, your philosophy, and the type of setting, the age range of children and so on that you have in Seedlings?
Hi,
And
Maura.
first of all,
Thank
sorry, you're both really welcome.
Thank
I
you.
kind of went through the introduction there and never said you're both really welcome. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast today. So, Johanna, can you tell us all about Seedlings?
Thanks for having us, Maura. Um, Seedling Nature Schools has a preschool and an after school, and we do camps as well. So the children would be 2.5 years to nearly 3 years when they start with us. And preschool children tend to leave at age about 5, unless they come back as after schoolers. And then they can stay until they're about 12 years old. So that's the age range that we cater for. We're often asked to take younger children, but it is a very specific way of providing education and care for young children. And we feel that when children are 3 years old, they're usually about ready to join us. What was the other part of your question? What do we do, or why did I start?
Your philosophy, your what led you to set up the preschool, and how many children do you have? You mentioned that it's in a yurt and a wagon, and the rest of the time is outside. So how many children do you have in the space, and how many staff, and so on?
Yeah, we can take 33 preschool children, and we can take up to 48 after school children, although we don't tend to take that many. We usually have a lot more staff in than the ratios would require, because we find Well, children are more spread out for a start, and they might need more help because, in an inside setting, indoor setting, if your child, little 3-year-old, needs help going to the toilet, that's one thing. It takes an adult away for a certain amount of time. Here, you have to add to it that maybe they're wrapped up in 3, 4, 5 extra layers of clothes. They might have to take wellies off to go in somewhere into the toilet area, or it's just that little bit more time consuming and complicated to do various things. And why else? We spend a lot of time, dealing with weather and just what nature offers us, throws at us, or offers us to learn from. And we feel that a very high adult ratio is necessary for that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a very good ratio then. And what, your personal philosophy, what led you to open Seedlings Nature School in 2017?
I think I was always passionate about learning outdoors. I was probably raised a little bit that way myself. And then in college, you learn about the benefits more from a sort of rational perspective of why it's good to play outdoors and so on. But then certain things have helped me channel my passion. So I did, for example, a study visit to Norway where I got to see some outdoor settings in operation, and it had a great impact on me. I really took home a conviction and a love for outdoor learning, which I then wanted to put in practice. And I couldn't find really where to practice it the way I wanted. So what was left for me to do was to open my own service, I think. Also, I then started to do forest school training, which really helps with the uh, practical application, because it's one thing to have the passion and the understanding of how important it is, and it's a completely different story to try and do it. And you prepare things the way you think it would be interesting or would work well, and then children say, "But I don't want to weave, or I don't want to go outside, or I don't." Or you planned one thing and then suddenly nature throws you wind that day, and what you thought you were doing with papers and delicate things is just not going to happen. So it is extremely helpful to have training to help put in practice the outdoor learning. So we've been running this, and it's started in a schoolroom with regular daily hours spent outside and a little bit of time spent in the schoolroom, and then it has morphed into what Seedling Nature School now is. So even when we're in the structures, they are not like indoor spaces. You don't get the temperatures that you get in an indoor space. The yurt is a tent, so it is not sealed to the cold coming in from the outside. It is a very luxurious tent. You can see it yourself as we talk to you. We have a stove to warm it, but you have to think of it as an outdoor space that is just more shelter.
And for people who are listening to this, we're recording on Zoom, so I can see the background you're in. It does look a very luxurious tent with canvas and timber beams, and it has a kind of a dome, like it looks nearly like a pyramid inside in it. But while it's luxury, it's a tent at the same time. So it's heated by a stove, which can be, I suppose, spotty heat. It's not as maybe evenly dispersed within. So do the children wear outdoor clothes while they're in the yurt, kind of shed layers and so on, is it?
Yes, we have to, when we explain to the parents what we do, we ask them to come for a visit and we show them so they see what children do and how they dig and how muddy they get and how they do get cold little hands, and they need to learn to maybe predict that it's going to be cold, and so do the adults. They predict what it might be like in terms of the temperatures and the requirements to be well, physically well. And we do a lot of make a big effort, and there's a lot of learning involved in being well so that we can then play and learn outdoors. And when they come inside, they might have boot liners on them. So it's not exactly shoes, but warm socks or boot liners. They need to keep warm indoors, and they may not take off their coats at all initially, although the stove can heat the tent to about 20 degrees if we want to, but it takes time and it's takes a lot of energy. And it's not our idea to hide inside. It is more our idea to be completely ready and to be thriving outside.
I love that idea, that idea of thriving outside, and
Yes.
that it's kind of sounds more like a transitional space then rather than a regularly used space. Some children might be inside, some might be outside, and they move freely in and out. Is that correct?
Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, especially when the weather is fine, you can leave the doors open, you can go in and out. If it's very muddy outside, then that doesn't work quite as well. So it's a very clear decision if someone is going inside. And the reasons for going inside, maybe Mary Ellen can tell us some of the times when someone just needs to go into the yurt for a bit.
Yeah, I suppose from the perspective of the children, if they are really, really, really cold, we will take them in to warm them up, and hopefully it will make sure that they can go back out again. But the yurt is definitely used not as much. The children prefer to be outside, and they want to be outside, and their parents have to have enough gear in their bag, hats, gloves, everything, even from the start of the year, and the extra warm gear so that it can enable them to stay out longer. Another thing is if the child is really tired and they're just not able to be outside, we'll bring them in, and we have little pull-out cots and we'll ride them down and they can have a rest and hopefully they'll be able to come back out again. But the idea is that it's just, as you said, a transition space to enable them to come back out again. And because most of our education with the children is outside, it's not inside. So yeah.
And
Also,
snack times can be inside and outside.
Sorry?
Snack times can be
They're generally
inside or outside.
They're generally outside, yeah. But
Okay.
we can, again, if the door is open and they want to eat inside, they can. It's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were going to say
yeah,
something there, I
two
think,
things.
Johanna.
Yeah, two things. So one is sometimes children have specific needs, and it may be a very sheltered, quiet, protected space to come inside here. That's another reason.
Mm-hmm.
Or the children have a lot of freedom. They can choose a lot. So if they felt, oh, we really want to, and they have an idea and it involves materials that are in here, then they can do that. But we also, I haven't explained to you that the yurt is only one site of two, or on one site. So we've two gardens and we've two groups. So the other site, the other garden, has a shelter, not a yurt. So it's an outdoor classroom, as it might be known as. So when your group is in that other garden, you don't really have the yurt available. So it really is an outside setting. And the children don't stay all day. So it's either preschool or after school. And usually we find, well, as I said, they thrive. They like it. They are well outdoors. It gives them so much choice. It gives them so much opportunity to fulfill their need. They can run and move when they need to. I actually have a bit of an issue with this idea that nature is great for letting off steam. Outdoor play is great for letting off steam. I think there should be no need really to let off steam. Children shouldn't have to keep in the steam and keep the tap on or the lid on top so that then there's a need to leave off steam. They come to us and they play and they fulfill whatever need they need to fulfill. So there is no pressure rising inside that then needs to be relieved. And I think nature and outdoors should be something quite different from just an opportunity to leave off steam. I believe nature can teach us almost everything we need to know. All the laws of nature are universal, they're transferable. So if we understand, because we are exposed to falling leaves or hatching heron birds, heron chicks, or whatever else we're exposed to, and we understand about the cycles of life and about the give and take in nature and how one thing feeds into another perfectly in cycles, and how nothing gets destroyed without or dies without giving life to something else. We can apply this to the rest of life. It's not only a nature education benefit. We can apply this to our social interactions, to our physics interests, to our everything. So I like to say that we can learn almost everything we need to learn outdoors. There are very few things in education for which you need an indoor space, but there are very many things that you learn outside that you cannot possibly provide indoors.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful, beautiful philosophy. And it takes us really nicely to that area of self-regulation, and where you mention about, I suppose, moving away from that idea of the outdoors being, where children let off steam, and indoors being where the learning happens. Can you talk, Mary Ellen or Johanna, more about that idea of self-regulation and how it being outside, being in nature, being in that cycle of life, of the leaves and the animals, how that supports self-regulation and children's emotional development?
Nature has a natural sensory environment, and it naturally provides a soothing aspect to our children. And we would have these magical tough trays and on nature-based ones, but it's all items from the natural environment around us, and they get to learn a lot about all of the trees that we have here, and especially they are obsessed with worms at the moment, and they're learning about where the worms are coming from. But it's the natural sensory of digging up and looking for the worms and holding them, and it self-regulates them quite. It's amazing just to watch the children just to self-regulate when they are digging in a hole of muddy worms and experiencing the wind in their face. And there's just so many natural aspects that, as Johanna said, that you get outside rather than inside in your classroom. And even just having the space to explore, from if they want to run, if they want to climb, if they want to jump, that really gets them in tune with their own body. And I feel that our children they're way more in tune with their own emotions than in a lot of settings, because we give them the opportunity to understand them, and how nature impacts them is just absolutely amazing. Even just from picking up a leaf and figuring out where it came from, and also the colors, everything, just everything that involves just the animals and nature around us. And we're on a very small site with regards to an outdoor setting, but we're very fortunate to have a variety of trees, and there's rabbits around and stuff. And it's just amazing to see the children just watch and learn and grow through nature. And like they inform our own curriculum all the time. It's very emergent here. And like a rabbit ran through the setting one day, and next thing we were all learning about rabbits and lovely rhymes and everything in the whole lot for them. The choices that they have outside, it's very confining to be inside, and they have to do tabletop activities, or they have to play in the kitchen, or they have to outside. The world is their oyster. We have a mud kitchen, but it's not necessarily a mud kitchen all the time. We had a coffee shop last week, we had McDonald's another week, and and it's all just their own creations, and and we really do try and listen to their voice.
So one other thing that you were telling me about before is how, for example, when an emotion arises, it's not labeled as bad or good. People get angry, people get wound up or have a bad day. So you give your examples.
So like, we don't have negative emotions here. So it's definitely how, if a child is experiencing something, there's generally something behind it. So we will label the emotion, we will talk to them about it, we will tell them any emotion is okay. For example, if they're angry, you're allowed to be angry, and we can figure out why you're angry, and we can figure it out. And I suppose our conflict resolution then would be more discussing between the children to figure out why we're feeling angry, and it's okay, and how does your body feel when you feel angry. And it really does promote resilience in our children, and they can figure things out between themselves. For instance, we have a timer now for conflict resolution, and the children will go and pick up the timer themselves now, and they will figure out, it's my turn now because the timer is up. And that only took about 2 weeks, because they are an amazing bunch of children, and they are so clever, and it's very easy for us as educators outside, because they are well able to navigate the environment more, and just putting a little timer into something makes it just easier for the children to navigate problems and stuff.
And also, we don't have to say no to as many things. So if they want to whack something with a stick, they have that opportunity. If they want to throw stones, our philosophy would be to get them to think, okay, this could hit someone's head, but we don't have to forbid throwing stones. We can channel and think, right, if we go over there where there is no one else, or maybe we make a line that people don't go across, so that we can be sure no one is going to run into the line of fire. Or we replace stones with bean bags and give a bucket So it kind of channeled into a less risky yet completely fulfilling exercise, which allows a child to act out or respond to those emotions that are rising up within them.
So it really sounds like you can kind of have maybe higher expectations of children. You can trust them, see their competence more when they spend most of their time outside. Would that be, when you were
Yeah.
saying, Mary Ellen, about, an amazing bunch of children, it's that, the opportunities outdoor enable them to demonstrate that competence more than maybe if they were inside in a more adult-led environment.
Yeah, I would agree
Am
with
I?
that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it is, and I suppose you've worded it a bit better than I have. But it's just I've worked in numerous of like full daycare, part time, and full creches and things, and I don't think I've experienced anything. I feel that our children are very empowered and they are very well able to look after themselves, and they really are heard and they really are seen here. And when they leave us going into school, I think they are ready for the world, and we would hope that we would instill a love of nature in them through our education with them, because everything that we do would have an aspect of getting back to nature and trying to. All of us are very passionate about it, so I presume that it naturally comes true to the children. I would hope it would come true to the children, but it's just when they leave us that we have shown them something that they wouldn't find anywhere else.
And that probably ties in with sustainability, that
Yeah.
sense that Milica Atanaskovich spoke about in a previous episode of this series, that idea of the wonder and awe in nature. And that if we, kind of see that sense of wonder, it gives us a value for it, which supports sustainability more, when children have that, very, it sounds like a very even emotional link to nature, that children are supported and empowered to develop.
It's a very real link. There's nothing taught or pretend about it. We're not holding up flashcards saying we must respect the trees.
Thankfully.
Each child has the opportunity to find whatever attracts them, because nature, I feel we're really lucky that nature helps us so much. It helps us be much better pedagogues because it inspires and it changes and it gives abundance of one thing one time. Now we have so many apples, we're going to make hand pressed apple juice. In a few weeks' time, there'll be so many leaves, we can probably gather them up into a huge heap and jump into it. But nature just provides so much inspiration that the children have a chance to pick what suits them. So one child is into the worms very much. Another child needs to, interact with the trees, try and push over the trees, just feel their body, feel themselves, jump, climb. And another child is much more quiet and calm and shy, and they will interact in a different way again. So when they have that very real relationship with something in nature, it's not something we need to rationally teach them. Now, I feel they leave us quite young. Preschool children leave us quite young. I believe that nature should be part of primary school, all parts of education, really. What we can send them away with is a great base. And I hope, using nature as a metaphor, I hope we were able to plant some seeds in some children, which will grow at a later stage, and that we will find that it'll stick with some children. We do get feedback from parents who say their walks in the park or in the forest have changed completely, where a child might have been relatively willing or somewhat reluctant to go, or whatever way they used to go, maybe walking on the hand, they're now excited. They know, they lead the parents, they know where to go, where to look for under a stone or behind a tree, or go through the under shrubs and not stick to the paths, and be explorative, be curious about life and about nature. And if parents feedback that information to us, I think it is
Lovely. Wonderful.
yeah, it
Yeah.
validates what we're doing, because it's not only during the morning for the 3 or 5 hours that they're with us that we say to them, now this is important, and we're not necessarily teaching them through the brain. It's that the heart takes
It's
something away.
embodied, real embodied learning. And, I suppose we've kind of spoken about the preschool. uh, how does the after school work? You mentioned you have children up to 12 and, some come back. Are some children new to the philosophy then when they come to after
Yeah,
school? And, do they love spending that extended time outside as well, especially after maybe spending a lot of the day indoors? They must love that freedom to explore nature after school.
I love remembering the anecdote of when three siblings came to us new, and they had been in a creche environment previously, and often even here, when by the time they get a bit older, they outgrow it a little bit. They start to need new things, and it might not always be possible in a creche situation to provide that. Um, but anyway, these children came to us, and they observed that it just so happened to be a day where our children had taken a rope and they'd tied something to give it a weight, tied something to the end of the rope, and they were trying to throw it over the branch of a branch, the arm of a tree, and try and get the weight to fall down enough that they could create a knot. And suddenly they had created a rope swing, and they were climbing up it and swinging on it and whatever else. And the boy just observed for an hour or two what all the things that they got up to, and he just went with eyes shining and with sort of disbelief in his voice. What else are you allowed to do here? And I think that's something that the children do appreciate, that, as I've mentioned earlier, we don't have to say no to as many things as if we were indoors. They have a lot of opportunity to develop activities and games and invent learning experiences for themselves. And I would love to say how this place would not be the same without the team that works here. So over time, we have collected a team of people who are just unbelievable and so amazing. And you watch them and you almost think it's no effort to them. They've become so good at observing, predicting, putting inspirations in there based on what they've heard, what interests they are, and that it looks like they have to do nothing. So they're able to, engage the children in ways that are so valuable to the children and that the children really do appreciate. That doesn't mean always everything is always very easy. I believe
Sure.
last Friday, a long discussion took place with some of the quite experienced after schoolers about a debate over whether or not it should be wellies and rain pants day. And that is one of the things that we reserve our right to decide. We as the adults, we keep an eye on the weather and we know what the group is like, and we say whether it's a wellies day, wellies only, or whether it's a day for wellies and rain pants. And some of the older ones might say, well, but I don't feel cold, or I'm going to run, and things like that. And but we know from experience that if we let children get quite cold, or if a rain shower pours down and they're all soaking wet, it takes a long time to recover from that. So so they were still discussing this, even though some of them have been with us for years. So why did I start saying that? It's not always rosy. It's not always rosy or easy, and you get some of them are so used to their freedom that they think they never need to, consider what others might think or what the adults might say. So I don't want to paint an overly rosy picture. It is a constant challenge, especially
And
when
I
staff.
think, sorry, Mary Ellen, you mentioned a couple of times about children having their voice. And, that when everybody has a voice, it isn't always comfortable. But that's what I suppose democracy is that people have a voice and then
Yeah, and I
maybe
think
collective decisions are reached.
yeah, and I think maybe we're our own worst enemy in one sense that way, when they get older, because we want them to create their own rules. We talk to them about boundaries. We really do instill them in having a voice in our setting, and then sometimes it does come back on you when they do this. And they had a petition and everything last Friday, getting all the children to sign it, and the poor educator was debating for 45 minutes with them. And then the younger ones saw what was going on and they took off all their boots. So it was a bit of a mutiny going on. But you can only kind of laugh at it in one sense, because this is what you've instilled your children to do in your setting, and then they're using their voice and they're using their noggin, and they want to change, and they want to be empowered, and they're going to do it. But again, we do come across a lot of walls sometimes with some of the children in the afternoons, because a lot of them are tired when they come home from school and they have homework to do, and we're trying to get them engaged. But their parents made a conscious decision sending them to us, and they want them outside, and they don't want them in front of screens, and they want them to be outside and learning, and they do love us. But again, sometimes it comes back on the educator when there's the mutiny, as I said. But yeah, no, it's fabulous, and the children are just amazing. By the time they leave us at 12, again, you'd hope that they have learned a lot of skills, because they do a lot of risky tool work and stuff when they get older as well, and they learn how to light their fires, and they even just hammering a nail properly and things like that. They might not get the opportunity to do that in any other setting, which is amazing.
And there's that balance always of responsibility and freedom.
Yeah.
Which again is one of those laws in nature. You can only practice the amount of freedom that doesn't, that you can balance with the responsibility that you have towards other people and other people's freedom.
And I suppose, that bit of, being challenged helps us to reflect on the logic of the rules that maybe we set down, and that there are times adjustments can be made, and then there are times you have to say, no, this is the way it is, and this is why. And I think a lot of the time, if people, anybody, not only children, if you understand why a rule is there or a policy is there, it helps you maybe abide by it. But, it's good for us to be challenged.
Yeah.
It helps us to reflect too.
There's something else I wanted to say about self-regulation. It's tempting to think, oh, a child self-regulates, they soothe themselves and they stop crying. They cope with their anger or their emotions or their needs, and they stop. It stops the pressure on the group or the adult. It's very tempting to think that self-regulation is somewhat equal to a child who's going to be easy, or a child who is no bother. And that's not what it is. Self-regulation is for the sake of the person and not for the sake of the group or the teacher. So if that means to fulfill my need, I need to do it behind the teacher's back, because then it doesn't cause a bother. That is self-regulation. They regulate their own behavior for the sake of their own, what they feel their need is, what they need to fulfill. And we do get some of that, as exemplified by the petition. He was getting active. He was becoming democratic, using the tools of his, he's very clever, and he's very persuasive. So he was using all those skills in order to really annoy us and really challenge us. But it's all really good learning.
He's a developing leader. And
Yes,
that's what we need. Effective
sure.
leaders.
Yeah.
Effective leaders. So, that's been so interesting. Thank you both. I love that idea of children thriving outside, and that when they're outside, they don't that it's not like a pressure valve anymore. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that either of you would like to add? It's been a lovely conversation, and I think a lot for people to reflect on.
I do believe that the future of education lies more in nature, and the topics that Early Childhood Ireland is looking into, sustainability and emotional regulation, things like that. I think they will come into it much more in the future as we learn to connect better with nature and connect our education more with nature.
It's really important, isn't it? Really important.
Absolutely.
So.
We live through it, and
Yeah.
we suffered through it, cold feet at times. Actually, one thing that you said earlier, Muriel, and I think it is important, you were mentioning the adults and their self-regulation and their learning.
Yeah, I suppose the last thing for me would be, like, it's not easy as an adult to be outside, and you do live through it with the children on a cold day, and you only make a mistake once of not bringing a second set of clothes, or you only make it have your accidentally forgetting your gloves or your hat because you're cold for the day. And I think if you feel it, though, the children feel it. And even being outside all day, it's exhausting. It really is, but in a good way. It's you have fresh air all day long, and I don't know, I couldn't work anywhere else anymore. And just being under the sky is just amazing all the time.
Lovely. I think that's a lovely point to end up. Being under the sky all the time is amazing. Thank you both so
Thank you.
much. Really, really enjoyed that conversation, and a lot I'll be mulling over after, and I'm sure people who listen will be the same. And so I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and spread the word to your friends and colleagues, and stay tuned for our next episode. And thank you so much, Johanna and Mary Ellen.
Thank you,
you.
Maura.
Thank you.
Lovely to talk to you.